Recording in progress.
Hello, everybody. My name is Greg Leipsic, and welcome to JA Manitoba's second virtual World of Choices, third World of Choices event. Our goal today is really simple. We want to inspire all of our students to learn all that they can about different career paths and gain some insight, knowledge, and resources to pursue your dreams after high school. We're really excited about the amazing speakers we're going to hear from today, and we hope that you'll learn more about a career that perhaps you're interested in, or hopefully discover something completely new that you've never considered. After each speaker presents, you'll be given the opportunity to ask questions. So teachers, you can queue up your questions and send them in anytime into the chat box, and I will proceed with them as I interview our guests. At the end, or in the coming days, teachers will have a digital survey for you to fill out, and we thank you in advance for your response. So first off, we're going to start with Nicholas Luchak, and I hope I pronounced that right. He's with Area Man Studio in animation, illustration, and design. Did I get your name right?
Yep, you got it right. Luchak.
Fantastic. Do you want to just take a couple minutes and you can tell us all about your path to where you are today, and then we'll jump into the Q&A?
Sure, sounds great. So I'm Nick Luchak. I'm a freelance animator and designer and illustrator, which is an important distinction because I know you guys are going to talk to Jasper from TripWire later, who's also in motion graphics and animation stuff. And TripWire is actually a client of mine, and I work with them closely. But basically, I'm a freelance animator, and I work under the title Area Man Studio, but it's not really a studio, it's just me. Although once in a while I'll collaborate with other creatives to do work. But basically what that means is that to be a graphic designer is that I make art for people for money. If a client needs something to look cool or to be animated in a certain way or to have a certain vibe to it, they'll hire me to help bring a project to completion, to look good and achieve the desired goal of whatever the issue is that they're trying to solve with the product that they're putting out. So I've done work for all kinds of clients. I tend to work closely with a lot of animation studios and design studios within the city. So if they're looking for, if they need extra help on art direction or animation or design on a project, then they'll hire me to come in and either work with their team or just work independently on a project for them. And I also work with various clients that come directly to me from word of mouth, basically. I've done work for, the list goes on, but for Winnipeg-based stuff is Festival de Voyageur, Manitoba Hydro, Co-op, Wawanesa Insurance, Manitoba Music. I've done work for artists like Begonia and the Bros Landreth. I've done little brands for Hoagie Boys, which is a restaurant in the city that opened up in the last year. Super Fun Hard Seltzer, Magic Bird Fried Chicken, The Handsome Daughter. I've done poster work for bands and things like that. So yeah, it's the kind of work that I do, and I tend to lean towards illustration kind of stuff and like wilder looking cartoony things. And I'm a freelancer, which means that I'm my own boss. So I work on my own. I work independently of any other company, but I kind of fit into their workflows. So I bring a certain skill set to the table that clients trust me with, and then I help finish projects and make them look cool. So being a freelancer means that I can make my own hours and I set my own hourly rate. And I have the freedom to kind of take time off if I need to, which helps because my wife is a nurse and works shift work, and we just had our second child. So there's kind of a work-life balance thing going there. Although when I say I make my own hours, it's kind of like a catch-22 because I'm beholden to whatever projects I'm working on with the clients. So I do have bosses when I have to answer to clients at different times, but it's never a consistent thing. What else? The kind of design work that I do, is basically branding or bringing a visual identity to life for a small business or for events or for musical artists. I've done album artwork, poster work, like I mentioned before, promo stuff. And in terms of animation, I've done character animation. I do motion graphics work, which is essentially just like adjacent to graphic design stuff. So taking design elements and graphics and text and learning how to animate that stuff in interesting ways. Anything you see that's video content that has stuff moving around, a motion designer is generally worked on that kind of stuff. I've done some music videos. I've worked on graphics for documentaries. And yeah, my client base and the work comes to me basically through word of mouth. So my history has been that I've jumped around from studios after high school and kind of amassed a slow freelance base of clients in between jobs, and then eventually decided to go it on my own. So just to talk my history there is that I graduated from high school interested in like music and art. I was in both courses. I played drums and I was really into art stuff. And my art teacher pushed me to go into the graphic design program at Red River, saying, this is how you can make some money instead of trying to be a fine artist. So I did 2 years there, and then graduated and traveled for a bit. And then I got a job working for Uptown Magazine, which is a subsidiary at the time of the Free Press. That eventually got canned, so I got laid off. So basically my history is like this winding road of me getting creative jobs and then getting laid off because there wasn't enough work or the company folded or whatever. So I worked there and then I freelanced in between, and I worked for a brief time at Vantage Studios. But that was kind of a seasonal gig. And then I went back to school at Red River for 3D computer graphics because I was interested in animation the whole time, but there was no courses in the city for it. So that was like a 3D animation course that I took. And then after that, still freelanced. I worked as the art director for the Uniter for a bit. And then I got a job at Honest Agency as a graphic designer for a while. And then after all that, decided just to do it on my own. And so the past 5 or 6 years, I've been freelancing. And so that's what I've been doing.
Okay. Can I jump into some questions?
Sure, yeah.
Well, shoot, I wish you'd had some different work experiences. You haven't moved around at all. That's awesome. So I guess my first question is, what do you think has made you grow career-wise and sort of given you that helped you along the way to experience all those different opportunities?
This helped me. I mean, definitely just going through all those different places and learning from different art directors and seeing how different studios work.
Yeah.
And kind of building my confidence in witnessing how the industry works, because it was just jumping in the deep end and slowly figuring out how everyone does everything. And yeah.
Okay, got a bunch of questions coming in, so I'll go through them as fast as I can to get to them all. Were there courses in high school that you would recommend to help in this career path?
I mean, it's been a long time since I've been in high school, and I think that there's a lot more that schools are probably offering in terms of like graphic design or computer graphics based things or animation. So I think anything in like, I mean, even like programming, like kind of getting in the world of adjacent design stuff, learning software on computers, like learning the Adobe software. If there's a course that kind of teaches you that stuff, it would give you a good base layer or an understanding of like the software that's used for a lot of things in this industry. What did I had like a little computer course that I had in high school, and it was kind of like I learned how to do Flash animation, which is called Adobe Animate now. It's not called Flash anymore, and it's just a traditional animation program. So yeah, I think like learning the software is a big part of it, and just having an interest in that stuff. Because fine art, which has been a standard course in high schools forever, is a good basic for kind of exercising that visual side of yourself and figuring out how to make something look cool and just like practicing. And that's always going to be there, and keeping sketchbooks and stuff. But in terms of like very practical application, I think any courses that would allow you to learn software.
Yeah, for sure.
Leg up.
Okay. How do you come up with your ideas for your artwork, and how do you know people will like them?
I don't. It's trial and error though. So it comes with time and practice. I mean, how do I come up with them? A lot of it is just having, trusting your taste and like keeping a mood board, collecting things that you think look cool. And then when a client asks for a specific thing, trying to pitch them on ideas that you think are really cool. But then knowing that someone will like it, you don't. And it's, doing graphic design or any kind of creative endeavor is a very personal process. And so you kind of have to have a hardened shell after time to figure out that, not everyone's going to like what you do, no matter what.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's just a trial and error process. Thankfully, 6 years into doing it myself, people now can kind of come to me knowing what I do specifically, and they know that I have a certain style that I can achieve. So I've been lucky that I tend to do more work that is catered to me now than I used to have. And that just came with a lot of time and experience.
Okay. Somebody asks, what does a typical day of work look like for you?
Well, I should mention I rent a studio space in the Exchange with a few other freelancers. So usually I'll bike into work in the Exchange, and then I'll post up. I have a desk and my dual monitor setup and everything. So it really depends on how much stuff I'm working on. But early in the week, on like a Monday, I'll try to make a schedule for myself for the week based on what has to get done. So I'll give myself the rough deadlines and then kind of bust out my time in terms of hours in the day. So how much time I have to spend per project, excuse me. So yeah, I mean, I'll sit and we'll listen to music or podcasts or talk to my buddies at the studio, and we'll just kind of like each do our own thing and just work. But it's nice to have a good space to do it in.
Okay. What I always get this question. What is the pay range for jobs in your kind of industry? Is it based on experience? Is it based on working on your own or working for a big or small company?
It's definitely based a bit on experience. From my experience, I can personally say that I'm making more now working for myself than I did working for any other studio. But that also only comes with having the experience that clients can trust you with work and then taking on more work yourself. So when you run your own business, you don't have to pay that many other people. And so you choose your hourly rate and you can make that much. But it's also based on how much you can work, how much you can get done. But yeah, the general range can be like nothing, doing pro bono work, just figuring out how to do freelance work, to, I mean, I have colleagues that make over $100,000 a year doing design work, which is insane, which is like kind of an anomaly. That's a lot of money to make in the industry, but it's possible,
Okay.
So your range is there,
Okay.
As a starting designer, like a junior designer, my first couple of jobs were like making $30,000 a year, maybe 30 to 40, and then kind of working up from there.
Okay. What was your favorite project, if you're able to pick one? What was your favorite project that you've worked on?
Well, one recently that comes to mind is so Begonia is like a recording artist in the city. She's like an amazing singer, and she just put a new album out, and she hasn't released these yet, but she asked me to do some visualizers for all of the songs on the album. So visualizer is like kind of a new music industry term for like content for every song on an album. So it's not quite a music video because it's not like the same production, but it's something that like moves a little bit and is a representation of the brand of the album. And so for this visualizer, she wanted to do karaoke videos for each video or for each song. So I had to I dug up all this really wild, silly stock video like you would see in the background of a karaoke video and just kind of design it up really cool. And so they haven't been released yet, but they will be. So that was a really fun one.
That sounds very cool. With the jobs that you do for your clients, are you paid per hour or do you give them an estimate before the project?
I usually give an estimate. It depends on the project and the kind of work it is. For animation work that's larger, And there's a lot of variables, so I tend to work a flat rate. I'll figure out, and that comes with time too, and figuring out how much time it actually takes to finish a project. So it varies, but it's all based on an hourly rate. You have to work backwards from how much time you think you're actually going to spend on something. So kind of both. I usually present it as a flat rate. So I'll say like, this is what the project is worth. This is the parameters of the project. These like, this is what I'm delivering, and this is based on an hourly rate. So if we're exceeding the scope of the project, I'll let you know, and then that's where you ask for more.
Yeah.
So it's a ever-changing process.
Okay. Have there been times where you've gone long stretches without working on a project? And then if so, how do you drag yourself out of that? And
Yes, yeah, it does happen from time to time. I mean, I'm grateful to have been doing it for this long and been doing okay. Essentially, I've been getting more and more busy for the past 6 years, with every passing year. So,
okay.
But every year also has a lull. So there's always a period. Like I've had months, usually not 2 months, but like a month. Once in a while, you'll see where not much work comes in.
Okay.
And I have to remind myself not to freak out and just trust that, the work will come, but also being diligent and knowing to contact your clients at that period. So if you don't see any work coming up, then just, cold call the clients you work with that, like working with you.
Yeah.
Say I've got an opening at this period of time, and hopefully you'll book something. If not, just hopefully you can work on some personal projects or some branding or something for yourself.
Doesn't matter what industry you're in, it's always sales, hey?
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. Okay, that's awesome. We're out of time. I really appreciate you joining us, Nick. This was fantastic. Thank you so much.
Cool. Thanks for having me. Hope
Okay.
it helped out a little bit.
Absolutely. Have a good day.
You too.
I'm going to jump over to Brenda Lou. She's a senior analyst for front-end development for Avanade. And I can't say, Brenda, that I have a whole sense of what the heck that means. So do you want to take a couple minutes and tell us what you do and how you got there? And then we'll jump into a Q&A.
Sure. Thanks, Greg. So you can hear me, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So hello, everyone. I'm Brenda. I'm a full stack developer from Avanade. So it's a pleasure for me to share my job career stories with you. Actually, I grew up from China and I came to Canada 8 years ago. So I started learning English not many years ago. So please bear with me if I say something wrong. I used to be an embedded hardware engineer in semiconductor company in Beijing. So my major is electronics and communication. When I was in high school, actually, I was not sure what exactly of my future job career. I just know I love painting and I want to do something related to this field. But unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to go deeper into the art. So I heard my parents gave me some advice to learn electronics. It's just because at that time it's easier to find a job in that industry. So after digging into this field, gradually I feel this is pretty interesting. And I really enjoy the process working with my teammates. We fix the bugs together, we build circuit board and show the demo to the client. However, after I came to Winnipeg, Manitoba, I couldn't find such a position close to my previous working experience. I know that I love working in the technical field, and I feel eventually we'll get there. So I did some self-study after finish my shift in Burger King and Flower Shop. So one day my friends invited me to join his software company, which is Old Commerce, as an app support role. I was lucky I passed the interview. So I'm working there for around like 2 years and a half. But eventually I noticed my knowledge is not enough to explore more. So I decided to go back to school to learning programming. So I studied a full stack program from York University about 1 year. And before I graduated, I got hired from Avanade. So Avanade is a global software consulting company. You may know the parents company are Accenture and Microsoft. So we provide software solution in different fields for the very big clients, such as like manufacturing, mortgage, telecommunication, retailers, etc. So those projects are pretty big and complex usually. I feel this is really good place to grow myself. So far I've been working in the software fields for around like 6 years. I work as a full stack means I need to work with the front end, back end, database, and also sometimes cloud side work. So recently you might heard like Microsoft migrate OpenAI technology on Azure cloud platform. So that's a Microsoft cloud platform. So I get a chance to work with my colleagues to use one of the OpenAI module in a hackathon project. I feel it's very powerful tool, and I think the AI has already been a changing of life, right? So I would suggest you get some concept for this part when you have time. So yeah, that's pretty much my job career life. If I would give you some suggestions, I would say don't be so panic or worries if you didn't get your first job or second job. It's not your dream goal. It doesn't matter actually. Just do your best for current work and really working hard. Find some time to learn some interesting topic there to like you think that might be your passion. And also if you want to jump into the software field, I would suggest like YouTube is a really good resource. It's free and they have lots of great instructions and you can like learn from there. And also doing some hands-on experience is very important. So you might heard if you do some like technical interview, you might need to jump to the coding. They will give you some tasks to pass. So I mean the hands-on is very, very important for you. But also I think take some certificates is more important. Like if you want to go to some big companies, such as Microsoft, they have their Azure AI, whatever, like certificates. And then you might can learn from you like YouTube or Udemy, by some instructions, like they are telling very simple and easy for you to understand. And then get some certificates is a big asset. So yeah, that's pretty much from my end, and welcome to your questions.
Perfect. Thank you. I've got a few questions already. And you sort of touched on it, but the question is, are there any free resources to learn coding?
Oh yeah, so I mean like honestly, I think the best way like you improve your coding skill is that you kind of imagine like a project that you want to build. And then from that idea, you find the resources and you Google it, use ChatGPT or whatever the tool, and you build by your own. Maybe you can watch a few like tutorial from YouTube, but not too much. So you watch one or two, you have some concept, then start jumping to the hands-on and build your own stuff. That more makes sense.
Okay. What is an example of AI that you are excited about?
Actually, I'm not like a AR department person, but for my current like hackathon project, I use embeddings model to build a search app, which is more like the different modules have their different assets. Like you just needed to do something like you feel like useful for your project. So for my side, I use embeddings, but they have different like DaVinci or different modules.
Okay. Of course, I always get this question. How much money can I expect to make in a career like yours?
People are really focused on the money actually. But for my like a suggestion, like everything goes natural if you really like focus on something that you want to build. So the money will come naturally. But like if you work in the big companies, definitely that the salary will be higher compared with the small companies. But yeah, it really depends on the companies actually. But normally you can Google it. It's like around that salary from Glassdoor. Yeah.
Do you see Manitoba as being a growing place for tech, or do I need to move out of province?
Well, frankly, I think here, like, I don't know other companies, but my company, like, they try to open their branch office in here. So they start hiring a few people. But I do notice, like, once they open other, like, the Halifax or other cities, they really prefer to hire students graduate from there. I think from their mind, they still think Manitoba's only doesn't have too much resources they can explore. But it really depends on your skill sets, right? Like if you have enough like skills and then show to the interviewers, you might have got a chance. Yeah.
Okay. What is your favorite part about coding?
I think I love like a React framework, which is a front-end framework. Like a lot of people saying like yes, software has different like a language, which one you think it should be focused on. But from my understanding, like if you learn one or two, and the other is like kind of like very similar. So you have to really deep understanding one or two, and then you can easily to transfer to other language. And yeah, most of the time, actually, you are not really building something, you fix the bugs. That's one big a part of a software skill set. So yeah, so I think try to resolve the problem is a big like skills you need to like practice.
Okay. Three questions, all the same, essentially. Do you work remotely? Are you allowed to work remotely? Do you have to go into an office sometimes or all the time?
Actually, for now, like I work remotely from home for around like 2 or 3 years so far. But in the office, like Toronto, we have office in globally in different big cities. The other colleagues I noticed they jump to the office sometimes like once a week, or they have some sessions or townhouse, they will go there, but normally they prefer working at home. So it's like hybrid.
Okay. Do you get to travel for work at all? Is another question.
Travel, not really so far, just the COVID has happened, like I keep working from home. Yeah.
Excuse me, sir. Just looking at the other questions. So, excuse me. Did you take any type of training in high school for coding, or was it all when you went to York University?
Actually, before I went to the York, I do the self-study. I actually start from scratch. I don't know anything about coding. I just noticed like one day I watch other people to build a flower shop website. I think it's so beautiful. I want to learn those skills. And then I just Google like how to do it. I watch the YouTube and follow to build my own, follow their step by step. But that's not really like easy to get into deeper into this like a website development. So when I went bold commerce, I studied with my mentor, and she taught me at that moment and guide me through. So I do have some basic concept before I jump to the York. But after I finish all the program from the university, I do have a better understanding with the whole concept. Yeah.
Okay. And I always get this question. Would you ever want to own your own company doing what you do?
Yeah, I love to. But actually, I think work with other colleagues, work with their project is also a better idea, because the consulting company is not like a normal product company. We kind of get different topics, different fields, project. So I have more experience and more chances to practice in the different fields, different project with different team, and the team from globally. So which means you can learn from a lot of talented people. So that I feel very enjoy the process working with and learn from each other. Sorry, Nick.
Yeah, I have time for one more question. And this one is, what is the hardest part about coding?
Well, like so far, not expertise. Honestly, I'm still like learning, but I think the structure, like you don't need to jump into line by line, but you understand the whole structure is very important, especially when you start a big project. Try to understand what they're doing and really focus on the client's requirements, and then read the technical articles or documents, that's more important. They normally write a lot of useful resources to left for the new journals. So as for the new journals, you have to like really try to understand and don't be afraid to ask questions. I kind of like learn I kind of like bug people. Sometimes the bugging others, they're very busy normally, but actually you really can find some people to answer questions. Just keep bugging them. It doesn't matter actually. Don't be shy or being laughed at. It doesn't matter actually.
Okay, and I'll just add to it, just for a plug for JA, we do have some resources on coding, so we'll make sure that we send those out to all of the teachers so that they've got the link to that on the JA campus. So Brenda, thanks so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. This was really fascinating. Thanks again.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Now joining us is Sherry Lees. She's VP Finance and CCO at Parrish and Heimbecker Limited. Welcome, Sherry.
Well, thank you. So I was sort of a late addition to your schedule today, and the fellow that asked me to step in, of course, I was very happy to do that. But he said, you just have to answer some questions. So thank you for putting me last. So I got to see what the format is like. I can figure out what I'm going to talk about.
Perfect.
So yeah, I'm the Vice President of Finance at Parrish and Heimbecker. And so I'm not sure if the students that are on the call today know too much about Parrish and Heimbecker. I'm going to tell you a little bit about that company because I think it's an awesome place to work. But I'll just give you a little background about where I came from. I grew up on a small farm in southern Manitoba. And when I moved to Winnipeg when I was 18, I took a commerce degree at the University of Manitoba, and then ultimately became a chartered accountant. I worked for Pricewaterhouse and Articled. And because I was that farm girl, I got put on all the ag clients. So if any of the firm's clients had anything to do in the ag industry, they were like, let's get Sherry to go and do that job. And so that led to some really cool things for me, not only because I grew up on a farm and I have a personal connection to the agricultural industry. My family still farms, my husband's family still farms. It allowed me to make some really great connections at companies that I was auditing early in my career. So I've been, I would say, essentially working in different parts of the agriculture industry for over 30 years. And I've done so many different jobs. And so I'll tell you a little bit about some of the jobs I've done, because I think a degree in commerce coupled with an accounting designation opened so many different opportunities for me. I did your traditional kind of controller roles where I, did a month end and prepared financial statements for people and did budgeting. And if anything, if you have an interest in numbers, that's a great career move for you. And it also, to skip ahead to answering questions about money, it has a pretty high top end, I would say, depending on what you end up doing in your career. And then the other kind of really cool things I've been able to be involved in over time has been things like buying and selling companies. So sometimes you hear the phrase M&A or mergers and acquisitions. So I've been involved in those kinds of transactions as my career has progressed. Things like helping the company set up its finances and working with banks. There's a whole suite of things that you can do when you're in that finance area. But the stuff I really love is actually more to do with how we run the business at P&H. And so P&H is in the ag space. We have three main divisions. The first division is the grain division. And in Western Canada, I think, is that the audience here? Are the students in Western Canada or all across Canada?
Just Manitoba, mostly, yeah, about 2/3 in rural Manitoba.
Oh, great, my people. Okay, so P&H operates grain elevators in one of our divisions, and so across Western Canada and into Ontario, we will sell farmers crop input products like the fertilizer they need, and the seed and the crop protection products like herbicides and fungicides to grow the crops that they grow. Once those crops are grown, P&H will buy those crops from the farmers, and what we do is we basically, sometimes I explain us more like a transportation company on the grain side of things, because our job is to buy the grain from the farmers at elevators all across Canada, put it together on big trains and move it to big vessels on the coast for either export. And some of the grain is used domestically depending on the commodity. But I often liken ourselves to basically being a transportation company for moving grain. The other big part of our company is flour milling. And so P&H is the largest flour miller in Canada. And a lot of people don't know that. A lot of the flour that we create is actually put under other brands. So when you go to Tim Hortons or you buy your, pizza, that is probably made with P&H flour. And so most of our flour assets are in the southern Ontario and into Ontario region, but we have a couple in Western Canada as well. And then the third division at P&H is a feed division. So we create animal feed for chickens and pigs and cattle. And most of that business is centered again in Ontario, but we do have a couple of big plants in Western Canada. And so that's a little bit about P&H and what the business is. One of the things that you can do at P&H, because it is a large organization, there's probably, I would say, 1,500 employees across Canada. We only operate in Canada. We're from BC to Halifax. And the really cool thing about the company is because it is large, it gives you these great opportunities to be involved in many, many things. And so if there are any questions about the roles or other things that P&H do in the questions, I'd be happy to answer them. I'm kind of looking at the clock, Greg. How much more do you want me to talk? Because I can talk.
No, that's perfect. That's perfect. I've got lots of questions already. So
Okay, let's go to questions.
Yeah, for sure. Somebody says, how good do my math grades have to be? Are there courses? So that's question one. Question two, are there other courses that you would suggest taking? And we're talking in high school, obviously, to think about a career, perhaps like in the accounting, financial side of it.
Yeah. So, you have to be kind of good at math, but it's not, it's going to sound like a kind of a weird thing to say. But it's not like you have to be an algebra, a calculus genius. You have to have a good sense of common sense about you, I would say. So if you like business problems, if you like problems, if you like puzzles, I sort of liken the accounting side of things to just sorting out a puzzle. The other thing I think that's important about my role, and something I think I do well, is I'm good at seeing in the number what the picture or what the story is, and then explaining that to people that don't really like looking at numbers. And so that's if you're somebody that is interested in numbers, but you actually are maybe more of a storyteller and you like to help people understand how to drive the business, this is a really rewarding career.
Okay. Have you ever made a mistake, and what did you do about it?
Never.
I don't know, but I'm going to assume you've made at least one mistake in your career, sure.
Oh, for sure. Everybody makes mistakes, and how you handle it is the most important part about the mistake, right? So yes, I probably made a mistake today. But how you deal with it is the important thing. So whenever I make a mistake and I'm aware of it, I immediately assess quickly, like, oh, is this a big deal? Like, did I tell somebody to do something that this mistake impacts some really important? I will immediately go and say, hey, hold on. I need to rerun a number. I need to relook at something because I think I've made a mistake. And there's a real power in saying that. And anybody who's afraid of saying they make a mistake, I think people that can say, I made a mistake, I'm going to fix it, they are the greatest people, because they're the learners. And I'm often heard around here talking about when we hire people, I'm less impressed by grades. And again, that probably sounds weird. I'm more impressed by finding someone who is a lifelong learner. Somebody that constantly wants to take on new information and try something new and be taught something new. That's the sweet spot.
Awesome. I've got a question, but it's going to jump me back into another question, but I'll start with this. Would a degree in agriculture be helpful in your role? And then we can talk about sort of other careers within agriculture. But let's start with this one.
I think it can hurt, and if you are interested in a career in ag, I would encourage you to please please take that role. This egg sometimes, I'm sorry if you can hear my phone ringing. I forgot to turn it off and it's going to ring for a few more times here in the background. But if you can, if you're interested in egg, oh, the breadth of jobs today in the egg industry is staggering. And sometimes I think egg gets a bit of a bad rap, right? You think it's kind of a boring, stodgy, old industry. It is the most exciting, interesting industry, I think. Of course, I'm biased. I often talk about us as becoming a bit of a tech company, which sounds weird again, right? Like ag is changing like many other businesses are to be more data driven, to be more technology focused. And, you know, the breadth of jobs you can do in this company without an ag degree is large. Ag degree helps because now you're talking the language of the people that are driving the business. And so it wouldn't be wrong to go down that path.
Okay. I got a long question. I'm going to sum it up. I don't want to work in Winnipeg. I don't want to work in a big city, but I love the ag world. What kind of careers can I look for? They're planning on going to university. Don't know what they're going to take, but when they're done, they're hightailing it out of Winnipeg.
Okay. Again, you're speaking my language. So I grew up in small town Manitoba. I've lived around Winnipeg for 30-ish years, but very few years actually in Winnipeg because I also don't love Winnipeg. I mean, it's okay. But if you grew up on a farm or in a farming environment, that maybe feels more like home to you. And so the great thing about a company like P&H and being in the egg industry is you can work anywhere in Canada, anywhere in the world, really. So P&H, for example, we have 45 physical locations outside of Winnipeg and Western Canada alone. Wow. I think we're at 63 locations across, something like that, 65 across Canada, and so there's Winnipeg, Vancouver. We have an office in Guelph, which is a small town, really. Cambridge would be a big city, and then the rest of them are all in small locations. And so a degree in ag would allow you to work in those small locations. Some of the jobs that we have, so if you're familiar with imagine because you're in Manitoba, you guys know what a grain elevator is. They are really impressive buildings that have become, you used to see wooden crib elevators across Western Canada have been replaced by concrete high throughputs. Those elevators, let's just say they cost around $50 million to build. So the people that run those facilities for us live in those small communities, and we need good, smart people to run those very expensive assets for us. Some of the jobs are as the general manager of running the whole facility. You could be a salesperson who sells crop inputs products to farmers. You could be a grain buyer who works with farmers to buy their crop and help them market their grain. You could be an agronomist at a location where you're walking the fields, you're out in the field every day, you're helping the farmer with soil fertility questions, what kind of applications to put on their crop to make them have the highest yields on that particular seed variety. There's just such a huge amount of jobs that you could do. We have repair crew. So if you're somebody who likes fixing things and you're interested in, working on machinery, we have repair crews that are based in rural Manitoba, but they move around to other locations and they'll go help fix things at the other elevators. So it's really broad in terms of the things you could do working not in Winnipeg.
Gotcha. Somebody's asking a question about like a lot of your salespeople, I assume, as you're talking about, are talking with farmers about the best way to help get the best results for their yields. Weather, I'm assuming, is a really important factor for farmers. Do you have people sort of in that world, or is that something totally separate? And
like in weather, are you thinking like insurance? Is the question more about like insurance?
Crop insurance and all that kind of stuff for farmers?
We're not in the insurance game. There's so many options out there for farmers for the insurance products. We don't actually provide insurance products, but the things that we do provide would be that great advice around, okay, well, it's a early spring or it's a late spring. As the weather changes, it really can sort of narrow in what a farm can actually plant and get to harvest, right? Because there's different growing seasons. And depending on, the particular area of the country that you're growing grain in, certain soils are better for certain grains. And so there's a science degree component to the agronomist role, where they're actually combining the knowledge of like, what is the soil conditions, what's the growing season in this region, what are the different varieties of the seed, and putting it all together to solve the puzzle of what is the best thing for that farmer to grow on their crop.
Wow. Okay.
On their land.
I don't know. I'm going to ask you this question. This is for me. Do you do any hiring per se?
Me personally?
Yeah.
You betcha.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you this question because on one of our other sessions, we had somebody in the HR business and they talked a lot about resumes and job interviews and all that kind of stuff. So let me just take a second. Resumes. What should be students be making sure is on their resume, or making sure perhaps doesn't need to be on their resume?
That's a great question. So if you're somebody who's hiring for a role, the odds are you're looking at a lot of resumes. So how to make your resume kind of appealing and interesting? Don't be too wordy. I'm really nitpicky about wordy anything, actually. So like a resume that I'm going to read is going to have maybe a heading like, here's the things I know how to do. I know how to, make a peanut butter sandwich, and what are the key things about making a peanut butter sandwich? I know it's not a particularly relevant example for the ag industry, but put the thing, couple of bullet points about what's important that you know how to do, and move on to the next thing. Don't write big paragraphs. Don't write an essay on it. Make it short one-liners that show the person who's trying to select who's coming to the interview that this person might have the skills I need for my job. And don't be afraid to even write in there things that you don't think are relevant to the job you're applying for. So if you're applying to be a salesperson for P&H and you've never sold farm products before, but you have worked in a retail environment, put that stuff down, because there's a lot of transferable skills between things. Just because you've never been an accountant for a company, you might actually be really awesome at budgeting your own expenses, or maybe you helped your mom and dad do their taxes. Like, don't be afraid to put some of those other things that you might think don't matter down, because they do. They'll catch somebody's attention.
Okay, that's great advice. Last question for you. Job interviews. Any particular do and any particular don't for job interviews?
Yeah, I got a couple.
Okay.
Do show up on time. In fact, but don't be like 20 minutes early. Be 5 minutes early and be ready, right? Don't be nervous. And this is a hard thing to not be if you're just a nervous person. But just remember that the person you're interviewing wants to hire you, that you got past all the hundreds of resumes they looked at, and they're interested. They are probably only interviewing maybe 3 or 4 or 5 people. So you made it that far. So you have something important, that got you here. Remember that you're interviewing them too. And that's not obvious to people sometimes. Like, even adult people don't get that sometimes, right? Is that when you're coming to an interview, for sure, I'm interested whether or not you can do the job for me, but you should be interested in whether or not I'm going to be a good boss for you, and whether or not the company you're coming to work for is a good place to work for your career to grow. So when you get those obligatory questions from the interviewer at the end, like, do you have any questions for me? Like, come up with what you really are interested in. Don't necessarily pick like whatever are the common Google questions you're supposed to ask. Ask what's on your mind. Yeah. Like, what are you curious about the company that you've come to interview with today?
That's fantastic. Terrific. Thanks so much, Sherry, and thanks for jumping in.
You're welcome.
This was really fantastic and great that you were able to talk on so many different
subjects.
I
have no problem talking, so.
Thank you again. Have a great day.
Okay, you too. Bye.
Okay, take care. Next up is Devin DeCosse. Devin is a cyber consultant with, is it CYPFER, Devin? Am I saying that right?
Yep, that's correct. Yeah, CYPFER.
Okay. CYPFER, do you want to take a couple minutes and just tell our students kind of what you do and how you got there, and then we can jump into a Q&A?
For sure. So, similarly, I grew up in a small town in Manitoba as well. I grew up in Somerset. It's a very small town near the border to the States. I've always been interested in computers. My mom was an accountant, so we had computers at home since I was, in kindergarten, doing things like DOS commands and stuff like that to play games as, a 5-year-old. I've always been interested in law and crime and stuff like that. So I did go to the University of Winnipeg and I took a criminal justice degree and psychology degree. A lot of those were focused on like policing in Canada and criminal procedures and criminal law. It was really beneficial for when I took those courses. At the time, I took every criminal justice course offered at the University of Winnipeg. And I graduated from there in, I believe, 2013. After I graduated, I actually moved to British Columbia and was surfing and being a cook. I surfed and cooked for about 10 years or so. And then I decided to take a stab and I wrote my LSAT one day. I studied about 200 hours and wrote my LSAT. And then I did a bunch of interviewing for schools. So I ended up choosing a school in Ontario called the Sir Sanford Fleming College. And I took a computer security and investigation program. It's an advanced diploma, and I did 6 semesters expedited. So I just did 5 semesters in a row without break, took my 1 summer off, and then I did a work placement. And for that work placement, I worked at BlackBerry and I did OSINT investigations, monitoring, and kind of paired in with physical security. Right now, I work for CYPFER and I'm a cybersecurity consultant. And primarily, the team I'm on is called post-breach remediation. So what I do is I show up to large organizations after they have been hacked. And me and my team, we help rebuild, restore, improve the security going forward. I work a lot with insurance. I work a lot with the government. I work a lot of stuff is confidential, unfortunately, but I am, it's very, very busy right now, especially with, how everything is online. It's a very, very busy field. And we are currently always looking for more skilled individuals to join. So, I had the opportunity to come talk to everyone here, and I thought this was great because if I would have known that this was an option when I was in high school, I probably would have pursued, this way more at an earlier time. But I really enjoy what I do. I take a lot of pride in what we do. And, it's really, really exciting to me. Sometimes I show up and it's a very high stress situation. The organization's computers are down, none of the retail is working, or none of the transportation or dispatching is working. So, in some cases, places are, losing multiple millions of dollars a day not operating. So we work 24/7 some days. Primarily, I work remotely. However, a lot of my job does require on-site, which is traveling. I'll be called at 9 p.m. and I'll hop on a plane and go wherever I need to go. Myself and the team, sometimes it's 2 of us, sometimes it's 25 of us. It kind of depends on the organization. If you want to get into this field, I do recommend that, you have a passion for computers, and you have to be a lifelong learner. What is available today for the threat actors to do will be different tomorrow, and the tactics they do are constantly changing. So our methods on the recovery side and the investigation side, they are also constantly changing. It's one thing that keeps it very fun. Tomorrow is always something different. I don't know if I'll be in a different country. I don't know if I'll be in a different province. It's really, really flying by the pants of your seat, and it's fun, stressful, but you got to be passionate about it. And the feeling you get when you can recover a client is, it's quite amazing. So, like, for an example, if you're an organization and you got hacked, if you called RCMP or OPP, unfortunately, the government resources aren't available right now. So, you have to call in a company like CYPHER or, SOFO's example, or, Palo Alto. All these companies are growing in the cybersecurity field. And, I'm a consultant, but there are so many varieties of positions in this field. You could be a security analysis, you could be a programmer, you could be into EDR, which is like endpoint protection, which is like kind of AI for what I do. You know, there's system administrators, virtualization, networking is a huge part. If you're more of a hands-on person, you can be a technician where you're actually, you know, installing cables and fixing cables and, you know, devices. It's, you know, it's endless. Yeah, similar as a consultant, I'm kind of my own boss. I do answer to a hierarchy, but basically for my day-to-day, I'm my own boss. If I have multiple engagements, I have to maneuver my time appropriately to, you know, address the most critical situation first. And so, you know, so on. I do have some coding background from my college. I took Python and PowerShell. My coding is more or less system administration based or like functionality based, not necessarily creating something, but it's definitely very beneficial. Yeah, there's a lot. Go
Do you
ahead.
want me to jump into some, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Do you want me to jump into some questions, or if you've got anything else you want to go through?
Well, we can keep going through some questions.
Sure, awesome. Fascinating industry you're in, for sure. First question, what's the biggest factor that goes wrong for companies that get hacked?
Unfortunately, what I see a lot of is either the company itself doesn't have a big budget for security, or, you know, it's through a third party, or, you know, unfortunately, sometimes if you have things exposed to the internet that shouldn't be exposed, that is a huge avenue of how things happen. So a big part of it, I think, is education. And that is, as the industries are developing, things that you could do 10 years ago, you cannot do now on the internet. So a lot of things that I encounter are dated technology that are still on the internet or exposed to the internet, and they shouldn't be. And unfortunately, right now, security needs to be 100% right, and the threat actors need to be 1% right, because they're going to just keep trying and trying and trying until the door opens. And unfortunately, a lot of it is kind of security budget and, you know, manpower and people. So yeah, unfortunately, when people engage us, it's usually already post breach. Sometimes we can get in while things are still ongoing and we can stop stuff, but that's a slightly different team than what I predominantly do. Yeah, good question though.
Okay. Have you ever encountered a hack that you couldn't fix?
So far, not.
Knock wood.
Not yet, no. We encounter things that we haven't seen before, which is a valuable learning for our whole team. There's the term called 0 day, which is an unknown vulnerability to the security industry or the manufacturer, you know. So teams, threat actors that can develop 0 days, you know, they can spend years and years developing one, whereas as soon as they use it, we all know about it, right? So it's kind of a balance for the threat actor as well.
0 day, that sounds pretty ominous. Is part of your work finding who the hacker is, or is it more so fixing the system so there's less threat in the future?
Yep. So both of those details would fall into what I do. However, there would be separate teams. So there is like separate investigation teams, which predominantly is what I used to do. I used to do more investigations, email investigations, which is pertaining to what the threat actor did, how they got in, did they take anything, and then how do we stop it? And then on the recovery side of things, when I'm doing a recovery case, my focus necessarily isn't what they did, but how to stop it so it doesn't come back. But usually repairing the systems takes quite some time. You know, it's a lengthy process depending on the environment.
Yeah. Somebody asked an interesting question. I mean, you talked about how the job can be 24/7 and you're darting all over the country or other countries. How does that work for people who have families, or they're a primary caregiver, or they've got kids and that kind of thing? How does it work for them? Because obviously, if you're not married with kids, it's easier for you to jump in a car or on a plane at a moment's notice.
It's not easy. That's the unfortunate answer. My wife is pretty all-star, being able to deal with me getting called at 9 p.m. to be on a flight for 6 a.m.
Yeah.
We also do have a young daughter. So, sometimes I don't get to see her for the whole week or so. So that's probably the most difficult part for myself personally on that side of things. It does take a lot of communication, both with your partner and your management. And because it is part of what we do, there is a kind of on-call parameter in our contract where you're not on call all the time. We have a rotation.
Right.
But luckily with that schedule, it does cover the week as well. So if you're on call for that week, I can express to my partner, hey, I'm on call. I have a go bag ready. So
Yeah.
I have a digital forensic incident response kit that is with me, and then my go bag as well, which is like attire, suits, work clothes, safety equipment as well. We go to a lot of places where you might not have to think about protective wear, so like glasses and earplugs and stuff like that. Just server rooms. If you've been in a server room for a couple hours, I'm sure you're going to start hearing the hums and yeah.
I bet. Someone asked, what's the worst hack you've ever seen?
I probably can't say.
Okay, all right, that's fair enough. Your schooling, what can someone expect to pay for the kind of schooling that's required to get into the cybersecurity industry?
Okay, so for my program, it was kind of more of the traditional tuition, 4,000 a semester type deal. So I think at the end of it, it was like 30 something thousand for the 6 semesters. That provided me with an advanced diploma. And the reason I chose the program that I did is that there was a guaranteed placement in the 6th semester. So I got work experience as my 6th semester, and it was paid work experience. So I got a student opportunity with BlackBerry, and that was the driving force to kind of why I picked that program. However, if this is something you are interested in, there is free courses, on Udemy, YouTube, some of the places that I follow, they offer pay what you can training, which is you can get a $700 course for, $19.99 or $25. It is really pay what you can.
Okay.
And they really, like I said, we really do need more skilled individuals in this field. Like I said, there's 10 different roles you could take in this field.
Sure.
And it kind of pertains to, what interests you more: security, investigating, improving environments. One of the things that we do offer a lot is called environment hardening. So, we can take a top level view of an organization and see how we can raise the bar on a security level. Unfortunately, like I said, security budgets constrain a lot of things. So usually we get called after the fact, but there are clients that can preemptively and do advisory type of work before things happen. And that is kind of where I want the field to grow and have more people pushing for better security everywhere. And cybersecurity analysis, like ideally I wish every company could afford a cybersecurity analysis, someone similar background to me, knowing about vulnerabilities, compromises, we have an entire team that does threat intelligence. That if you're interested in that, that's tracking criminals on the dark web. I took dark web investigation courses. Like what is in the cybersecurity industry it's wide open for
Right.
whatever interest you kind of want. You just have to kind of, delve into the free courses, see what sparks your interest, and keep digging. And like I said, life learning is required. So
Awesome. Well, I'm out of time, unfortunately, because we got lots of more questions, but well, for sure have you back, Devin. It's a fascinating industry you're in. And thanks so much for joining us this afternoon.
yes, thank you for the opportunity. Have a good day.
Next up is Colin Fraser from TripWire Media. He's jumping in for Jasper Elnart, who had to put out a fire this afternoon. Thanks for joining us last minute, Colin. Do you want to maybe just take a minute, just tell us sort of how you ended up where you are at TripWire, and then we can jump into a Q&A about your industry and the opportunities within it for high school students if they're thinking about that kind of career?
For sure. And yeah, thanks, Greg. And sorry about Ethan. Yeah, our Jasper story. I put him on fireman patrol, so I guess I have to fill his space here. But yeah, so I'm the executive producer at TripWire. In a kind of a small organization. It's the fancy way of saying I get to run client services and production manage it all at the same time. So I took a bit of a roundabout way, started off at University of Manitoba in a history degree, my grand plan to become a teacher until I was essentially coaching high school kids playing hockey and rugby and a few other sports, and realized I don't mind doing this an hour a day. I cannot do this 8 hours a day for the rest of my life. So I pivoted a bit, went to broadcasting school. And then from broadcasting school was on air for a little bit doing radio, and then went into more of the marketing side from my learnings in broadcasting, working in mostly print media until about 5 years ago, where I landed at TripWire and in a very similar role, managing projects and working with clients in print media. But now I get to do it with video, which for some people I hope is a lot more fun.
Awesome. Do you want to we'll start with behind the camera, not sort of your side of the camera, if we can say there's different sides to it, but what kind of opportunities are there for people that you wouldn't normally see, like behind the camera, whether it's the graphic designer, whether it's the camera operator, sound, like can you talk a little bit about those kinds of opportunities that there are?
Definitely. Yeah, besides, the actor in front of the camera that gets most of the credit, there is a ton of roles in film, whether it is in our side of the world, which is mostly focused on the corporate side, or into short-term documentaries that we're a bit into, or into, of course, full-length movies that, if you ever drive in the Exchange, are filming in Winnipeg all the time now. Everything from camera operators, electricians, lighting assistants, additional camera assistants, directing, assistant directors, project managers, all the way down to some careers that you wouldn't think are in the film industry, where we have film specific accountants who deal strictly in the film industry. We have people who work with strictly grants and processing those and getting money for your productions. Doing financial analysis is kind of something you never would think in the film world actually exists. So there's opportunities, no matter what your specialty is, there's probably an opportunity in the film world that you never thought possible.
Are there courses in high school that students should think about that might help them or give them sort of that leg up if they were thinking about if they were thinking about a career in this industry?
Definitely anything from a storytelling perspective. Those English classes go beyond that, look at the creative writing side of it. Depends on, the tech school that you may be attending in high school. There are intro to film courses, there are intro to photography courses, full-blown photography and filming courses, if you are in that tech school. But then from the other side, there's graphic design fits right into the film world. If you're looking at doing anything from special effects to full-blown 3D animation and everything in between, getting started in that graphic design program in high school is a great step forward.
Perfect. Okay, pivoting away back to your job, can you describe a little bit about what you do specifically? And then the question is, what's the favorite part of your job?
So yeah, I kind of get to wear two hats. I'm for the most part leading our client communication. So being able to be that liaison between what the client wants, what their goals are, who their audience is, and then communicating that with our creative team and then down to our production team, right down to post-production, and delivering that video and making sure all client needs are being taken care of. And then when I'm not chatting with the client, that's when I put on the other hat and do all the things that the client just asked for. So be able to communicate down to the production team right till delivery. So the really fun thing about my job is kind of twofold. I get to still really be in a creative space, work with our clients on essentially who's their audience, what's the goal, and what do we need to do to move that audience to the goal. And that's really the simplest calculation we make when we're doing a project with a client. So then being able to work with them from the creative side, how are we going to tell that story, into the production side, how are we going to show that story, and then when we get into post-production, how do we put it all together? So really fun for me is dealing with, I don't have, very rare that I have two clients that have the same audience and the same goal, and the same business that we're supporting. And at the same time, it's very rare that there's two projects that come out exactly alike. That's the creative side of it. So there's no monotony in my day. I could, be across the street at a studio for a shoot and come running and get to do an awesome chat with Greg within an hour. So yeah, my day can change very quickly, and it's that's what's fun. You have a calendar you open up in the morning, but you never know what your day is going to be. It's kind of awesome.
Perfect. Okay, somebody's asking, what was your favorite project? And full disclosure, you guys do some fantastic videos for us for the Manitoba Business Hall of Fame, so you're not going to offend me by not saying that that's your favorite project. So putting that aside, they want to know what's your favorite project or your coolest one that you've worked on in the last year or two.
Well, I will pump your tires a little bit on half of one of my favorite projects. One of favorite experiences, because of the job I'm in, is you hear about Hartley Richardson and the Richardson family and how much they do for Winnipeg. But I actually got the experience to meet him and interview him and learn about not just what does the Richards family do. They buy grain, they work in oil, they do a bunch of stuff, and they make a lot of money, and then they give a lot of that money back to the community. I got to learn all about where Hartley came from, why he decided out of 7 or 8 brothers and sisters that he would take the reins and keep this company moving forward. So being able to talk to someone like Hartley is an experience that not many people get to do, of just being able to sit down with him. Cameras turn off and we're just essentially two guys shooting the shit. And it's a really cool experience that wouldn't come for most people in other industries. But I do have to say, probably one of the most fun projects we did was a series we did with Dufresne Furniture. They wanted to go away from doing the furniture ads of this is on sale, that's on sale, fridges here. You hear them on the radio and see them on TV all the time. And we did a series called Adulting, which took a really fun spin on how people get their first piece of furniture, and moving them from, they got that couch from mom's place or that piece of IKEA furniture that breaks down, and being like, oh, we bought this new Dufresne furniture, now we're real adults. And we were really able to have a lot of fun with it, and show how creative TripWire can be. And that's just clients giving us the confidence to or having the confidence in us to take an idea and run with it. So that would probably be kind of top of my list as far as just a single project goes.
Awesome. Have you ever, you or your company, been hired by an influencer?
No,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
No, we have not, not been hired by social media influencers. no.
Okay. Is there a special type of film or animation that you do or that your company does that you think is pretty cool?
I don't know about special type. The one thing with what I really like in working in the animation space is the ability to just be creative. And I think that, creative keeps being the word that pops out in every answer. But for what it would cost you to film a guy sitting at a desk talking to Greg, we could have that same guy going to the moon and collecting moon rocks. So working in animation really gives you ability to use iconography and tell cool stories while showing it. We've told what I will call some boring stories. We told the story about a company out of Oklahoma who's setting up hydrogen fill stations that are green across the states. To a creative industry that's pretty boring, but all of a sudden the hydrogen's filling up trucks that float away because now they're like balloons and this is more green, and you had a lot of fun with it. So I don't think we specialize in the storytelling side of it, not so much. I wouldn't say film techniques. We have our director of photography, head of production, has 22 years in the film industry. So when we bring him an idea, he then molds it to the visuals that help tell that story. Same idea in animation. We bring a story and then our animation team comes up with the style that helps tell that story. So we're really focused on story, not so much a specific technique. We don't have the Michael Bay approach where it's all explosions. We like to fit our videos to the stories that we need to tell.
Okay. Besides JA and Dufresne, can you name some other recognizable companies that students would be aware of that you've worked with in Manitoba or Canada for that matter?
For sure. I will say there's a couple pharmaceutical companies we've worked with over the last few years, both in Canada and the United States, I'm not allowed to tell you who they are. But they're the good one, the good commercials, not the bad commercials. But in Manitoba, we do a lot of work with New Flyer Industries, is a good example. We've worked previously with Marks, which most people still remember as Marks Work Warehouse, but we've done a lot of work over the years with Marks as far as larger companies are concerned.
Awesome. My time's up, unfortunately. I could keep going for a while, Colin, so I'll for sure have you back. This was really good, and I appreciate you jumping in at the last second. So thanks again.
Thanks, Greg. Yeah, this was lots of fun. Happy to do it again.
Okay, take care. Thanks, everybody. That brings us to the end of our last World of Choices session. Thanks to our fantastic speakers. I hope you found the sessions valuable. Teachers, you'll get a survey in the coming days, so please fill that out. Don't forget, this session and the previous two sessions can be found on JA Manitoba's YouTube page. You can just search it, and then when you get there, just look for the most recent videos. And thank you again to all our mentors and for all of our teachers registering and all of you students for tuning in. Have a great day, everybody. Take care.